One moment, Sophie Cunningham was sitting on a podcast laughing and swapping stories. The next, she'd ripped apart a decades-old WNBA playbook that the league and its media gatekeepers have spent years protecting. With one unfiltered conversation, she bypassed ESPN, skipped the so-called insiders, and went straight to the fans, racking up more engagement in a single week than most sports reporters get in a year. And here's the twist. Sophie wasn't just talking about Dana Bonner's messy departure from Indiana. She was quietly exposing how the WNBA's media machine really works, and why it's terrified of players like her and Caitlin Clark taking control of their own stories. What happened next didn't just spark controversy, it sent shockwaves through the entire league. It all started with what sounded like an offhand comment. Sophie Cunningham was talking about Dana Bonner's short stint in Indiana, how it surprised everyone she even signed with the Fever, how she's a Hall of Famer who can score from anywhere, and how her exit wasn't exactly wrapped in a pretty bow. Normally, that kind of inside talk would trickle to a beat reporter, get watered down, and eventually appear in a "Sources Say" article. But Sophie didn't hand it to a journalist. She told it herself in her own words, without permission and without the filter. No corporate PR script, no off the record, just pure first-hand truth. She even said it outright. If you leave a team, you should expect to be booed, unless you left on some very real, justifiable terms. No sugarcoating, no fake smiles. And that's when the old guard realized something dangerous was happening. Because this wasn't just about Bonner. Sophie was breaking the unwritten rule, the one that says WNBA players should protect the inner circle, keep disagreements quiet, and never give fans the unpolished truth about how the league really operates. For decades, the WNBA's media coverage has run on the same formula. A tight circle of approved reporters decides which players get the spotlight, which moments get replayed, and which stories quietly disappear before fans ever hear them. If you were part of the inner circle, your interviews were glowing, your mistakes were forgiven, and your rivalries were smoothed over. If you weren't, your record-breaking nights, like Caitlin Clark has had this season, might get buried under feel-good features about someone else. This was the unspoken deal. Players needed the media to reach the fans, and the media used that power to protect certain names and shape the league's image. It was about control, not connection. But Sophie just proved that those walls aren't made of steel. They're paper thin. By going straight to the fans and telling her own story, she didn't just dodge the gatekeepers, she made them irrelevant. And nothing scares an old-school media machine more than realizing it's no longer needed. The numbers don't lie, and they're brutal for the old guard. Before her now infamous on-court fight moment, Sophie had a respectable online presence. Around 350,000 followers on Instagram and roughly 200,000 on TikTok. Enough to be noticed, but nowhere near the level that moves a league's conversation. Then, almost overnight, it exploded. Within a day and a half, she'd cleared 1 million followers on both platforms. That's not just growth. That's the kind of leap most WNBA insider reporters couldn't dream of in a decade. And here's the kicker. She didn't get there by posting safe highlight reels or heavily edited interviews. She did it by being unapologetically herself, competitive, blunt, and real in a way fans never get from ESPN's sanitized sound bites. While traditional reporters were still debating how to frame the Bonner story, Sophie had already told it, posted it, and watched it rack up engagement in real time. This is the kind of growth that proves something bigger. Fans aren't looking for permissioned, carefully managed quotes. They're looking for authenticity, and they'll reward it with their full attention. And Sophie wasn't done, because her next move would take her out of the WNBA's bubble entirely and put her on a platform that even ESPN couldn't ignore. This is where Sophie stopped playing checkers and started playing chess. She didn't just grow her audience, she partnered with Colin Cowherd's sports media empire, The Volume. That's not a small podcast network. That's a heavyweight player in mainstream sports media. The kind that talks NFL, NBA, college football, and now, Sophie Cunningham. And make no mistake, she wasn't brought on as a token gesture to support women's sports. They signed her because they saw what ESPN missed. That direct, unfiltered player storytelling doesn't just work. It crushes the safe, corporate-approved coverage every single time. This move sent a loud message to every athlete in the WNBA. You don't have to stay in the corner the league put you in. You can step into the main arena, own your platform, and connect with millions without waiting for a highlight segment or a friendly columnist to call. It's also a warning shot to the traditional press. If players can bypass them and still get massive reach, what exactly are they offering anymore? But Sophie's biggest power play wasn't just stepping into a new media space. It was who she decided to defend once she got there. Sophie could have played it safe. She could have stayed neutral, avoided controversy, and kept her content light. Instead, she went straight at one of the most heated debates in the WNBA, the treatment of Caitlin Clark. On her podcast, Sophie didn't dance around it. She flat out called Clark's critics dumb as hell and meant every syllable. No polite rephrasing, no corporate tone, just blunt truth. She didn't just defend Clark as a teammate, she defended her as the face of the league. A young star who's driving record-breaking viewership, ticket sales, and social media engagement. And Sophie knew exactly what she was doing. By speaking directly to Clark's massive and fiercely loyal fan base, she tapped into the fastest-growing audience in the league. These are fans who have felt ignored, even pushed away by the old WNBA media machine. Sophie didn't just welcome them. She spoke their language. No PR filters, no "we need to give her time" narratives. Just an unapologetic message. If you can't see what Clark means to the league, you're not paying attention. And the results were immediate. Her comments spread like wildfire across social platforms, driving even more followers, more engagement, and more demand for unfiltered player voices. But while fans were cheering, the traditional media, they were starting to panic. Behind the scenes, the reaction from traditional sports media was instant and desperate. Reporters who'd spent years as the middlemen suddenly realized they were being cut out of the equation. Networks started rushing to sign WNBA players to content deals, hoping to lock them down before they followed Sophie's blueprint and built platforms of their own. Because here's the harsh truth. If a player can directly reach millions of fans with raw, engaging content, what exactly is the point of a gatekeeper? For decades, the system thrived on controlled access. The media decided who got the mic, when the story came out, and how it was framed. Now, players like Sophie, and potentially Caitlin Clark, are taking that control for themselves. The old model is cracking, and the ones who can't adapt, they're going to be left behind. Some outlets will loosen the leash and try to give players more freedom within their platforms. Others will cling to the old rules and lean on team pressure to keep athletes in line. But the smartest players? They've already realized they don't need permission anymore. And the movement Sophie's ignited isn't just staying in the WNBA, it's about to spill into every major sport. The Bonner comments may have been the spark, but Sophie Cunningham lit a fire that isn't going out. She's shown every athlete, not just in the WNBA, but in every pro sport, that you don't have to wait for a reporter to call. You don't have to hand your story to a middleman. And you definitely don't have to water it down so it's safe for a corporate highlight reel. You can build your own platform, speak directly to fans, and make more impact than the biggest sports networks combined. And here's the part that has the old guard sweating. Sophie's influence isn't tied to her stat line. She doesn't need a 30-point game to trend, and she just needs to be real. That's a complete rewrite of the media hierarchy. For years, only MVPs and champions got the microphone. Now, any player with personality, credibility, and the guts to be authentic can own the conversation. The WNBA media landscape from even 6 months ago, it's gone. The funeral just hasn't been held yet. Athlete-owned sports media isn't coming, it's here. And unless traditional journalists can offer something players actually want, they'll be watching from the sidelines while stars like Sophie and Caitlin Clark build empires of their own. Because when you cut out the middleman, there's no going back.